Smoke filled the purple skies of Elcor Prime. Screams echoed through the narrow stone corridors of the mountain citadel. The war had come faster than anyone expected. Captain Jace Renner of Earth's Colonial Marines wasn't even supposed to be there. His ship had crash-landed 2 days ago, shot down by an unknown energy blast from the planet's surface. He'd survived, barely. The rest of his squad didn't. Jace had crawled from the wreckage, bleeding and disoriented, only to be surrounded by tall, armored aliens with crescent-bladed spears. They hadn't killed him. Not right away. Now, bound in energy chains, Jace knelt in the center of a grand stone hall filled with whispering aliens. Their violet skin shimmered under the firelight. Their golden eyes stared at him without kindness. Behind their curved helmets and long braided hair, they looked almost royal. A deep drumbeat started, heavy, rhythmic, final. Jace's heart pounded, not from fear but from something else. A strange calm. He had faced death before, on half a dozen worlds. But this was different. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a ceremony. He lifted his bloodied face. The aliens were chanting now. A tall figure stepped forward. Her robes shimmered like silver water. A veil covered the lower half of her face, but her glowing eyes were visible. And locked on Jace, she raised her hand and the chanting stopped. Prophetess Defied had heard stories, brief, scattered reports from human outposts along the frontier. A mysterious alien priestess who could see beyond time. The one whose visions shaped the fate of the Verilari Empire, and apparently, she'd seen him. The high priest beside her read ancient words from a long scroll. His voice was deep and cold. Jace didn't understand the language, but the tone made it clear this was a death sentence. A ritual killing. He clenched his jaw. His wrists bled from the energy cuffs. He wouldn't beg. If this was how he was going to die, fine. But he wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing a human afraid. Then the prophetess spoke. Her voice was soft but clear, like water over glass. And it made everyone in the hall freeze. She walked forward, eyes fixed on the human warrior, ignoring the protests of the high priest. Her delicate fingers reached out. For a moment, she hovered above him, then she touched Jace's shoulder. Whisper passed through the crowd. The energy cuffs cracked, then shattered like glass. Jace blinked. He didn't move. Not yet. The prophetess turned to the high priest and said something, sharp in their native tongue. Gasps, anger, confusion. Warriors stepped forward, but the prophetess raised her hand again. And they stopped. She turned back to Jace and did something. He didn't expect that. She helped him stand. Jace staggered up, legs shaking from blood loss. He stared at her, confused, suspicious, but also alive. The prophetess looked into his eyes. "You do not belong to death," she said in near-perfect English. "Not yet." She turned, her silver robes flowing behind her, and gestured for him to follow, and Jace followed, limping, confused, and unarmed, past guards who didn't dare stop them. The hall behind him filled with angry voices. But none of them challenged her. Not one. Down dark corridors they walked, the prophetess and a wounded human. She didn't explain where they were going. Jace didn't ask. Every step echoed with the weight of something ancient, something strange. At last, they entered a quiet chamber filled with blue light and soft hums. A healing room, he guessed. She helped him lie down on a floating slab. Machines scanned his body, and soft green light began to close the worst of his wounds. He winced but didn't speak. The prophetess removed her veil. Jace's breath caught. She was young. Her face was smooth and sharp, eyes still glowing softly. Not cruel. Not even cold, just burdened. "Why?" he finally asked. His voice was hoarse. "Why did you stop them?" She didn't answer right away. Then, in a low voice, she said, "Because I saw something. A vision I did not believe ... until now." She walked toward a glowing console and placed her hand upon it. "You were supposed to die today, sacrificed to seal a great war. But if you die, the war grows worse. Everything burns. My people, yours, the galaxy." Jay stared at her. She spoke like someone who knew the future. She turned to him once more. "You are a key to a different fate," she said. "And now, everything changes." Jace didn't sleep. The strange blue lights in the chamber faded to a soft glow, and the healing bed stopped humming. His wounds were mostly closed now, thanks to the alien tech, but the pain still lingered deep in his bones. More than the pain, it was the question that kept him awake. Why him? He had been captured, beaten, prepared for sacrifice, then suddenly freed by the highest spiritual figure of a hostile alien empire. None of it made sense. The prophetess sat in silence at the far end of the room, staring into a swirling orb of light. She hadn't moved in an hour. Her expression stayed calm, but he sensed tension behind her eyes. He finally spoke. "So, your people still want me dead?" Her voice came quiet but firm. "Yes." That wasn't reassuring. "You stopped the ritual. Doesn't that make you a traitor?" The prophetess rose slowly and walked toward him. "To them, yes. But to time itself, no." He raised an eyebrow. "You keep talking about time, the future. Visions, what does that mean?" She didn't sit, just stood beside him, gazing down with unreadable eyes. "In my bloodline, the females are born with the sight. I see possible futures, threads of reality, paths not yet taken. I've studied them all my life. Do all your visions come true?" She hesitated. "No, only the ones people follow." Jace chuckled bitterly. "So I guess you're hoping I follow yours." "I'm hoping you don't die," she replied. Softly, "Not yet." Before Jace could respond, a sound echoed outside. A metallic hiss. Then a deep voice barked something in the alien tongue. Her expression darkened. "They found us?" She helped Jace up. His legs still shook. But he nodded. Steadying himself, she opened a hidden door behind the healing console. Cold air rushed in. A narrow tunnel led downward into darkness. "No lights," she whispered. "They're tracking energy. Stay close." They entered the tunnel. The walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, casting eerie shadows. Her steps were silent. Jace's boots scuffed the stone with every slow move. Behind them, shouting began. Doors slammed open. Someone fired a plasma shot. It lit up the corridor like lightning. "Keep going," she said. "There's a way out." Jace gritted his teeth and followed. Every muscle in his body screamed. He had no weapon, no armor. But somehow, the prophetess moved like she feared nothing. After a few minutes, the tunnel opened into a wide cavern. Massive roots curled from the ceiling like claws. A strange creature, part insect, part serpent, slithered across the far wall, ignoring them. A platform hovered above a pool of thick mist. On it, a circular ship rested, small, old, with dents and faded sigils across its hull. Jace blinked. "A Skyrunner?" He muttered. "You guys still use those?" The prophetess smiled faintly. "Not officially. This one was forbidden." She raised her hand, and the ship opened with a slow hiss. The ramp lowered. "Get in," she said. Jace hesitated. "You're coming with me?" "Yes." "And they're going to let you just leave?" "No," he exhaled. "Then we better move." They climbed aboard, and she rushed to the console. Her fingers flew across the glowing symbols. The ship groaned, then hummed to life. Power surged under their feet. From the tunnel, armored guards burst into the cavern. "They'll shoot us down," Jace warned. Not if we fly low, she said. And fast. The Skyrunner lifted, then shot through a narrow crevice in the rock wall. Behind them, plasma blasts slammed into stone. Echoes roared as the ship vanished into the dark skies above Elcor Prime. For several minutes, they flew low across jagged cliffs and dead forests. The air was thick with ash from a recent battle. Far in the distance, a Verilary war temple burned. Jace leaned back in the seat, breathing hard. You just betrayed your people for a human you've never met. She didn't look at him. Not just for you, for the galaxy. He frowned. What do you mean? Her eyes narrowed, locked on the horizon. Your kind doesn't understand what's coming. The visions show a storm. A great purge, something ancient, something worse than war. And I stop it? She nodded. Or you begin it. The silence between them grew heavy. Jace looked down at his hands. The scars, the blood. He wasn't a hero. Just a soldier who survived too many missions. Why me? He asked again. The prophetess finally looked into his eyes. Because every time I see the end of the galaxy, you're standing in the center of it. Asterisk, the Skyrunner flew low over a dead riverbed, its shadow passing silently over broken machines and fallen towers. Jace looked out the window and saw the remains of an old human outpost, crushed, burned, forgotten. How long has this war been going? He asked. The prophetess glanced at the ruins. It never really stopped. It just changes. Names. He leaned back, still weak but steady enough to sit without shaking. You keep talking in riddles. She didn't reply. Outside, the land turned red and dry. Sharp cliffs rose like jagged teeth around them. The ship dipped beneath a rocky overhang, hiding them from any scanning eyes in the sky. Once they were inside a wide cave, the prophetess shut down the ship's engines. Everything went quiet. This is safe? Jace asked. For now. She moved to a small chamber in the back and returned with a flask of thick liquid. Drink. This, Jace sniffed it. It smelled like metal and spice. He took a sip and almost gagged. But after a few seconds, he felt warmer, stronger. Some kind of alien nutrient blend, he guessed. Not pleasant, but it worked. The prophetess sat across from him. Her calm face looked more tired now. You said I'm part of a vision, part of something. Dangerous, Jace said. But I'm no savior. I'm just a soldier. You were a soldier, she said. Now, you're something else, he laughed without humor. Like what? Like a spark, she answered. In the future I saw, your life changes everything. One path leads to a war that burns entire worlds. The other leads to peace. But both paths start with you. Jace stared at her. So you're saying I could destroy the galaxy or save it? Yes. He shook his head. That's a lot for one broken man. She looked down, fingers curled tight. You weren't supposed to survive the crash. That's what scared me. Your ship was doomed, but you lived. That wasn't part of any vision. That caught his attention. So I'm not in control, he said slowly. You're not in control. Something else is changing things. Yes, she whispered, and I need to understand why. Before he could reply, the ship's warning lights flashed red. She jumped up and checked the console. A probe. Scanning the canyon. Jace stood, slower, grabbing the wall for support. Then we should move. No, she said. We can't fly. They'll track the engine trail. Jace looked around the small Skyrunner. Any weapons on this thing? Only one, she replied. She opened a hidden compartment and revealed a long, ancient-looking staff with embedded energy crystals. This was used by my ancestors. It only works for those with a blood bond. She touched it, and it pulsed with light. Jace looked unimpressed. That won't help me much. She tilted her head. Maybe not, but we have something else. From another panel, she pulled out a small device with a holographic map. There's an old relay station in the lower tunnels. We can send a signal, but it's crawling with scouts. He nodded. So we go on foot. You're still weak. She said, I've been worse. They exited the ship into the cold cave air. The prophetess led them down a tight passage, moving like she'd walked it many times before. Strange glowing moss lit the walls in shades of blue and green dot. Then they heard it a hiss, soft but sharp. Something was following them. Jace raised a hand, signaling her to stop. He crouched near a wall, eyes scanning the shadows. From the rocks, a thin shape slithered into view. It had 4 legs, a long tail, and pale blue skin. It didn't look like a scout. What is that? Jace whispered. A whisper beast, she replied. Not usually aggressive, unless they smell blood. They both looked down at Jace's leg. One of the smaller wounds had opened again. The beast's eyes locked on him. Then it lunged. Jace grabbed a sharp rock from the ground and threw it with all the strength he had left. The rock struck the beast's snout. It shrieked, more surprised. Then hurt. The prophetess raised her staff and slammed its base into the ground. A wave of energy burst out, sending the whisper beast tumbling backward. It hissed one last time and vanished into the tunnel shadows. Jace exhaled. Remind me not to bleed near any more wildlife. They kept moving. Finally, they reached a round metal door covered in vines. The prophetess placed her hand on the scanner, and the old relay station hissed open. Inside, the lights flickered to life. Dust floated in the air. Machines clicked awake after years of silence. Jace sat down near the console while she powered it up. Do you really believe I can stop this war? He asked. She looked at him. I don't know, she said honestly. But I believe you're the only one who might. The ancient relay station hummed softly, its systems barely alive after years of silence. Sparks flew as the prophetess reconnected power cells and cleared dust from the main panel. Jace sat nearby, wiping dried blood from his face with a torn strip of cloth. This place feels like a grave, he muttered. The prophetess glanced at him. In many futures it is. She turned back to the controls, pressing a few glowing runes. A faint pulse shot through the floor, followed by a series of deep thuds somewhere below. Machinery grinding to life. What are you doing? Jace asked, activating the message beacon. We need to contact someone outside this planet. Anyone willing to help? Jace frowned. You think anyone's listening? She paused. They have to be. While she worked, Jace stood slowly and explored the room. Cracked monitors showed faded images of past battles. One screen played a glitchy feed of the outer desert. Another showed an old archive. He tapped a button and pulled up a small hologram. It was a map of the Tez of the Verilari Empire. Huge sections of it were marked in red: hostile, overrun, lost. He looked at the blinking yellow dot representing their location. We're right in the middle, he said. Yes, she replied, still focused. And if we stay here, they will find us. Then why call for help? He asked. Why not run? Because this is bigger than us, she said. There are secrets hidden here, things even my people don't understand. I need someone to hear what I've seen. A loud beep echoed through the chamber. The prophetess stepped back. The beacon was online. She pressed a button and began to speak into the mic. This is High Seer Verasha of the Verilari. I speak not as a servant of the Empire, but as a guardian of truth. I have broken sacred law to protect a human warrior, Jace Renner of Earth. He is key to a future none of us yet understand. If anyone hears this, come. She stopped recording. The message repeated on a loop, broadcasting across nearby systems. Then came silence. Jace looked at her. And now? She looked tired. Now we wait. But they didn't wait long. Less than 5 minutes later, the floor trembled. Then the walls shook. The prophetess snapped around, eyes wide. No, not that fast. They shouldn't be this close. Jace grabbed the broken metal pipe he'd taken from the ship. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. From the main door came a loud boom. Then another. They're breaching. He yelled. We can't fight them, she said. Then we run. She grabbed a small data crystal from the console and shoved it into a pouch. This holds everything. The visions. The future. We can't let it fall into their hands. Understood. They turned and sprinted toward the rear exit. The moment they passed through, the main door exploded inward, and black-armored Virilari soldiers poured in. Blaster bolts flew. One barely missed Jace's head. Another scorched the wall beside the prophetess. They ducked into a side tunnel. Jace stumbled once but kept going. Adrenaline pushed him forward. He heard the angry shouts behind them, no longer cold or ceremonial, but furious, desperate. They want me alive, he muttered. But not you, she didn't answer. Her breathing was sharp now. She moved fast but winced with each step. You're hurt, Jace said. She nodded, pressing her hand to her ribs. Fragment. Caught me when the door blew. Jace paused, helped her lean on him. We're almost out, she whispered. They reached a lower platform just above a narrow river of glowing red mist. Beneath them, a hovercraft rested, half buried in vines. Jace jumped down first, checked the controls. Still functional. Get in, he shouted. She climbed down slowly, blood dripping from her robe. As soon as she was inside, he activated the craft. It roared to life. Soldiers burst onto the platform above. Too late. The hovercraft dipped under the rock shelf and vanished into the misty canyon. Inside, the prophetess collapsed. Jace moved quickly, finding a medkit. He patched the wound as best he could. Alien tools, human hands. You didn't have to save me, she said weakly. Yes, I did, he replied. We're in this together now, she smiled faintly. You still don't understand. You're not just part of the future. You are the future, Jace frowned. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She reached into her robe and handed him the crystal. This holds the map to the temple. The real one. The place where the visions began. Jace took it slowly. What's there? He asked, her eyes closed, her voice fading. Answers. And the thing that's hunting us both. Asterisk. The hovercraft glided through thick mist as the narrow canyon widened into a field of strange blue grass. Giant roots curled out of the ground like bones. In the distance, silent towers stood crumbling, ancient structures half eaten by time. Jace held the control stick tight with one hand. The other held the glowing data crystal. It pulsed faintly in his palm, almost alive. The prophetess lay behind him on a makeshift bed made of rags and emergency padding. Her wound had stopped bleeding, but her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. Looked over his shoulder. Virasha, stay with me, he said. You said there's a temple. Where? She opened her eyes slowly. Keep going east, through the crystal forest. Then down into the scar. Jace frowned. Scar? You'll see it, she whispered. He drove the craft forward, the engine whispering beneath them. The alien grass soon faded, replaced by sharp black rocks that scraped the bottom of the vehicle. The sky above had turned a strange greenish hue. Something about this land felt wrong, like it remembered pain. Suddenly, the crystal in his hand grew hot. Jace hissed and almost dropped it. What the hell? He held it up. Symbols glowed across its surface, shifting, ancient. A line of light beamed from it, pointing ahead. A guide, Virasha murmured. It knows the path. Jace followed the beam. they crossed into a stretch of land covered in tall, jagged crystals. The hovercraft floated carefully between them. Some hummed. Others vibrated faintly as they passed. His skin tingled like static crawled up his arms. Then, he saw it. The scar. A massive crack in the earth, deeper than any canyon he had ever seen. It stretched miles wide, curving like a wound carved by a god. And at the center, a tower. It rose from the depths of the chasm like a black tooth, ancient and untouched. "That's it," Varasha whispered. Jace guided the craft to the edge and found a narrow spiral path that led downward. They had no choice. The Skyrunner couldn't fly in this unstable air. He carried her carefully out of the vehicle. She winced but didn't cry out. Even now, wounded and half-conscious, she tried to stay strong. The path down was steep. Loose rock shifted under Jace's boots. He kept one arm around Varasha, the other on the wall. Slowly, they descended into the scar. Hours passed. Finally, they reached a small plateau. A black stone bridge stretched toward the tower dot. As they stepped onto it, the air grew colder. Time itself seemed to slow. The crystal in Jace's hand pulsed faster. Inside the tower, everything changed. The walls shimmered like they weren't made of stone at all, but of frozen light. The air buzzed softly. Strange symbols floated mid-air, reacting to the crystal in Jace's hand. Varasha stirred weakly. This place. It remembers the first vision. What is this place really? Jace asked. She looked up at him with tired eyes. It's the origin. Before war, before empires, there was this tower. It showed my ancestors what was coming. And now, it shows you. Jace hesitated. I don't want to see the future. It doesn't care. At the tower's center was a round chamber. In the middle stood a tall mirror, except it wasn't glass. It was liquid, dark, and swirling like oil. The crystal flew from Jace's hand and merged into it. The mirror lit up Dot, and Jace saw himself, bleeding, screaming, surrounded by fire. Step closer, and the vision changed. He saw Earth, then burning planets, alien fleets. A dark shape moving across stars like a shadow with 1,000 eyes. What is that? He whispered. Varasha's voice trembled. The one that consumes timelines, a mind that lives in broken futures. Jace turned to her. You never said it had a name. She looked afraid. Because speaking it invites it. The mirror showed something new. Jace leading others alien and human through fire, holding a sword that glowed white. Behind him stood Varasha. Alive and strong. Then the vision blinked. Jace, alone, covered in blood. Worlds burned behind him. He stood at the edge of a broken planet. 2 paths, 2 ends. Jace backed away. What do I do with this? Varasha's breath shook. You choose. That's all you ever had to do. The mirror faded. Jace turned to her. Can we stop it? This thing, the shadow you saw? She nodded faintly. If we unite the forgotten ones, the outcasts, the broken warriors, and you lead them. Jace felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, not even hope. Duty. Outside the tower, a sound echoed. Engines. Multiple. He looked up. Dropships, Virilari soldiers. They had found the scar. Jace knelt beside Varasha and picked her up again. We're not done yet, he said. We're just getting started. Asterisk blaster fire lit up the chasm. Jace ran along the inner edge of the scar with Varasha in his arms, her weight pressing against his chest. Above them, enemy dropships circled like vultures, searching with floodlights and scanning beams. The Prophetess had fallen unconscious again, her face pale and cold. They had no cover. Nowhere left to hide. Jace slid behind a large stone pillar, breathing hard, mind racing. The visions, the tower, the mirror, it all played in his head like a storm. He didn't have time to process any of it. The only thing that mattered now was getting her out alive. He reached into her satchel and found the data crystal again, still warm, still pulsing with that strange guiding energy. He held it tight. What now? He muttered to himself. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the ground. Not from the dropships, not from the soldiers. It came from the scar itself. Jace turned. The black tower behind them was opening. The mirror chamber glowed, and a staircase unfolded from the center platform, spiraling downward into the darkness. Jace looked down at Varasha, then toward the enemy lights drawing closer. No choice, he whispered. He stepped into the tower one last time and descended into the unknown. The walls glowed as he moved. Symbols floated past him like ghosts watching his steps. He felt no fear, just clarity. They reached the bottom. There, he found something he didn't expect, a hull of warriors, frozen, dozens of them, alien, human, mixed species, all in armor, standing motionless like statues. And each one held a weapon sealed in crystal. Varasha stirred in his arms. Her voice was weak, but clear. They were dreamers, the ones who believed in peace. Jace stepped closer to one of the frozen figures. It was a human, a woman in torn military gear. Her eyes were closed, her face calm. Her hand rested on a weapon that looked like a blade made of light. These people, they died? No, Varasha said. They were locked in time, waiting for the spark to return. Jace looked down at the crystal in his hand. It was glowing brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat. He stepped into the center of the hall. A tall pedestal waited there empty. Jace placed the crystal into the slot. The ground trembled. The frozen warriors opened their eyes. One by one, the crystal weapons shattered free from their cages. The warriors stepped down, silent, alive. Some stared at Jace. Others looked toward Varasha, who had managed to sit up with his help. They recognize you, she whispered. You are the thread that connects them. Jace turned slowly, realizing what was happening. You brought me here, not just to see the future, but to raise an army. Varasha nodded. One that doesn't belong to any empire, one that listens to truth, not power. Outside, the walls of the tower cracked. Soldiers were closing in fast. The newly awakened warriors gathered around Jace. Alien claws, metallic limbs, human hands, they all raised weapons. Jace picked up one of the crystal swords. It felt warm, heavy with purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, he admitted. You've already said it, Varasha replied. You chose to protect me. That was the first step. Above, explosions rocked the top floors. Dust rained down. A blast opened a hole in the wall. Verilari troops rushed inside with plasma rifles raised, but they stopped when they saw what waited for them. Not one wounded human and a dying seer, but a forgotten army. Jace stepped forward, sword in hand. I won't let your visions come. True, he said. Not the dark ones, not the endings. The prophetess stood behind him, using her staff for support. Her voice rose, strong now. Let the past burn. Let the empires fall. The future begins here. The chamber shook as the first shots were fired. Jace and the awakened warriors charged. Swords clashed with rifles. Shields blocked plasma bolts. The tower glowed with energy, alive again after centuries. Jace moved like lightning, his body faster. Then he remembered. He blocked a shot, ducked under a blade, and struck with the glowing sword. The weapon sliced through armor like it was paper. The prophetess fought to her staff, channeling waves of force, sending enemies flying. Her eyes burned with light. One Verilari commander stepped forward, massive and cruel, his armor black with gold trim, You should have stayed dead, human. He shouted, raising his cannon. Jace didn't flinch. He leapt forward, blade raised high. The cannon fired, but Jace was faster. One clean strike. The commander's weapon shattered. The second strike sent him crashing into the wall. Silence followed. The last of the soldiers fled. The chamber quieted once more. Jace dropped to one knee, panting. Around him, the warriors nodded. They didn't cheer. They didn't speak, but they had accepted him. Varasha approached, bleeding, tired, but smiling. It has begun, she said. Jse looked up. What has? The war for the real future, she answered. And you are its first leader. Nate. Sun rose over the scar for the first time in days. Its light touched the edge of the black tower, and something changed in the air, lighter, clearer, like the world had taken its first breath after a long nightmare. Jay stood at the entrance of the tower, armor scorched, blade resting across his shoulder. Around him, the warriors who had once been frozen in time prepared for what came next. Some cleaned weapons. Some stood in silent prayer. None asked questions anymore. They had seen the truth in the tower, and they had followed the human. Behind him, Varasha leaned on her staff. Her wounds were still healing, but her spirit was unshaken. She had given everything to lead Jace here, and she didn't regret it. You saw it too, didn't you? Jace asked quietly. The moment the Empire falls, she nodded. I saw it years ago. I just didn't know who would bring it. And now? I do. Jace turned to her. Then we move. We end this. She smiled, faintly. Yes, but not with fire alone. You carry more than a sword now. He looked down at the crystal blade in his hand, then back at the army behind him. We'll need all eyes. World's not under the Empire's control. Survivors. Rebels. They'll follow. Varasha said. Once they see the proof? He raised an eyebrow. Proof? She stepped aside, and behind her, a hologram activated. It was the recording from the tower, the visions, the warnings, the shadow across the galaxy. And Jace, fighting it. Broadcast this, she said, across all channels, not just to humans. To every species. Let them choose. Jace uploaded the signal and watched it vanish into the stars. Far beyond the scar, across dying planets and broken systems, the message began to arrive. It reached smuggler dens and silent resistance cells. It reached forgotten colonies and ancient space stations. It reached alien leaders hiding in fear and human outposts on the edge of extinction. The name of Jace Renner, the human who survived the Verilari sacrifice and woke the lost warriors, spread like fire. Back on Elcor Prime, chaos bloomed. The Verilari high priest who had called for Jace's sacrifice now stood in the Grand Council, furious. She has betrayed our blood, he shouted. She has corrupted our visions. Other elders looked unsure. She spoke the truth, one said softly. She disobeyed law. Another snapped. But the war has cost too much. Arguments, shouting, uncertainty. Then a message came through, broadcast from a hidden satellite. It showed Varasha standing beside the human, and the image of a dark future that no longer had to come. The chamber fell silent. Days later, in a desert once ruled by Verilari scouts, Jace's new force met with the first rebel cell. Then another, then dozens more. Species who had once feared. Humans now looked at him with cautious hope. The prophetess spoke to them, explaining the visions, the tower, and the choice that still remained. We do not force war, she said. We offer a future worth fighting for. Jace stood beside her and lifted his blade. We don't want to conquer. We want to survive. Slowly they came forward, fighters, leaders, healers. Some carried weapons. Others carried banners. But all of them shared one thing. They chose to follow, on the 10th day, A message reached them, from Earth. Jace stood still as the screen lit up with the face of an old friend, General Sato. "You're alive," Sato said, eyes wide. "We thought you were lost." "Almost was," Jace replied. Sato listened as Jace explained everything. The sacrifice, the prophetess, the tower, the army. When the recording ended, Sato leaned forward. "Earth is listening, Jace, and we're ready." The final war hadn't begun yet, but the galaxy was no longer blind. That night, Jace stood alone by a fire, watching the stars. Varasha joined him. She held something in her hand, a tiny fragment from the tower, glowing softly. "It's still shifting," she said. "Still showing paths." He looked at her. "Any idea what comes next?" She shook her head. "Not yet. But it's the first. Time and centuries the future isn't already written." He nodded slowly. "Then we make it a good one." She touched his arm gently. "Thank you, Jace." "For what?" "For not running. For choosing the harder road." He gave a small smile. "Someone had to." They stood together, watching the stars. Two warriors from different worlds, fighting for one future, together.